Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. Thank you kindly for stopping by. I do appreciate it, I really do. This Saturday, Mindspeak returns at the Sankara Hotel. We'll start at 10 a.m. Serve tea or coffee beforehand. The guest is the Secretary General of UNCTAD. This is Dr. Mukisa Kituyu of Kenya, who became UNCTAD's 7th Secretary General on the 1st of September 2013. Very interesting resume. He was the Minister of Trade here in Kenya 2002 to 2007, elected to Parliament in 1992. Very erudite, wonderful fellow, and I'm very much looking forward to hosting him. I'll put up his photograph as well. Sadly lost one of his sons at a very young, tender age. Everybody knew here in Nairobi as well. But looking forward to hosting Mukisa at Mindspeak this Saturday at the Sankara. If you're interested in knowing what Mindspeak is, there is a link on Rich Wrap-Ups. What is Mindspeak? Macro Thoughts, Ian Bremer, visualization on the world economy. So it explains quite a bit. Have a look at this visualization. Nanex LLC yesterday tweeted China A50 futures red versus other stock index futures around the world yesterday morning. Took a big almighty tumble, biggest fall since 2007. That was yesterday. It was down again this morning, but then subsequently I think they came in and supported the market, but I'm not sure where it's closed. Interesting tongue-in-cheek question on global research. Chinese stocks crash overnight. Will we see another glitch in New York? You'll remember the correlation between what happened in New York and in China, and a Chinese sense that the short sellers might have come out of North America. Home Thoughts. What matters in life is not what happens to you, but what you remember and how you remember it. It was inevitable. The scent of bitter almonds always reminded him of the fate of unrequited love. And both of them remained floating in an empty universe where the only everyday and eternal reality was love. And finally, no matter what, nobody can take away the dances you've already had. Gabriel, Garcí, Márquez. Let's move on to politics. Mr. Obama will be the first US leader to address the 54-member African Union in Addis Ababa today in about 30 minutes. Looking forward to listening to what he's going to say. He's been a tour de force, he really has, through the African continent, and it was a privilege to be there physically when he spoke in Nairobi and Kasarani. And both Nishit and I were on a high as we left, and quite frustrating because getting in took us 3 hours, and at about 2 hours 30 minutes I said to Nisha, I really can't manage this, and she was actually saying, look, we've come all this way, and suddenly the path opened, we came in, we sat down, and I was quite far back and a bit disappointed with that. And then this fellow comes up, says, Ali Khan, if you're prepared to stand, come right down. And I went right down, and on my left was the president, said hello to him, and various cabinet secretaries. And then President Obama appeared, spare, isn't he? Very thin. His physique reminds her of President Kagame, but Kagame is even more ascetic. And he spoke so brilliantly, and I thought to myself, there are very few people who connect in that manner with Africa, because, of course, he's part African. He's sort of post-tribalist, isn't he? Kelvin News inside the AU headquarters, where later today Barack Obama will become the first US head of state to address the organization. I'll put up an image of that. The irony, of course, is that it was built with Chinese money. Robert Fisk says every regional power has betrayed the Kurds, so Turkish bombing is no surprise. Foreign policy, remarked Mr. Kissinger, should not be confused with missionary work. I feel sorry for the Kurds, and I agree with what Fisk is saying. Sky News: is this wreck off the Swedish coast a Russian submarine? The Swedish ambassador is my very good friend, Johan Borgstad. He cracked a couple of jokes yesterday about it, but it's serious stuff, isn't it? Euro dollar 110.64, dollar index 96.64, Japanese yen 123.60, Swissy 0.9618, pound 155.45, Aussie 0.7303, India rupee 64.075, South Korean won 11.6422, Rial 336.67, Egyptian pound 782.89, and the rand at 12.60. Let me put up a 6-month chart of the dollar index. I remain a bull, as I've been since September last year when I wrote that piece about being a time to be a shark. I wish I'd been more of one personally. Euro dollar 110.61, got a bit of a lift yesterday. I don't see it lasting. I think it's going to peter out. The problems there remain very challenging, and there's no doubt that Draghi's going to turn the spigot on again. So we'll keep an eye on that and stay short. Commodity markets: the Bloomberg Commodity Index of 22 raw materials was little changed on Tuesday after dropping to the lowest level since March 2002. It's just not getting any kind of trading bounce at all. In November 2014, I was quite prescient when I said the commodity supercycle is dead in the water. It is now. I said then the unwinding of the supercycle will take gold below $1,000 an ounce. And right now we're trading at 10.96. I'll put up a 6-month chart of that. Holger tweets Brent oil returns to bear market. Let me put up his graphs because they're rather good. On the 2nd of June, I wrote I expect the price of WTI, that's not Brent, that's West Texas Intermediate, crude oil to head back to $50. And there is a reasonable chance we will still print fresh 2015 lows below $44. We're now trading at 47. And I said then I think it's a dead cat bounce, and I expect the price of WTI to go to 44. Crude oil, I'll put up that's at 47. I'll put up a 6-month chart. My target is 40 now. Espresso beans shake London coffee market as futures near expiry. The rising price of July futures over September, and I'll put up a graph, you'll see it's an extraordinary backwardation, signalling short supplies in the near-term delivery requirement, which is interesting. Everyone is saying there isn't a shortage, it's just Vietnam holding onto stock and not being able to deliver it quick enough. But it looks, markets don't move like that unless there's a definite squeeze. Holger analyst DeMark sees 14% China drop as stocks mirror 1929 US crash. Let's have a look at this diagram that's put up. Coming to Africa, Black Niger, Obama begins talks with Ethiopia's Prime Minister Haile Mariam Desalegn. That was yesterday. Sat down to a bilateral meeting with Desalegn at the National Palace in Addis Ababa. Made many comments, and there's been a lot of dispute. He sort of endorsed the democratic credentials and said it was, a democratic process, and a lot of the opposition in Ethiopia are unhappy with him. And the opposition in general, even here, has proven unhappy with him. But I think he said some home truths. When people are in power, they talk about sovereignty. When they're not, they want the Americans to do absolutely everything for them. And I think, he raised the issue as to, which I'm sure because he feels the brickbats from the Republicans about loyalty, nationalism, and saying, where is the line? Is there a new airstrike policy in East Africa? This is a foreign policy asking. US warplanes flying over East Africa have bombarded al-Shabaab targets in the past week with a series of strikes in Somalia, shifting from pinprick attacks that strictly focus on the jihadis' leaders, US officials said Friday. A July 14 US strike in Somalia, coupled with the Kenya artillery barrage, killed more than 50 militants, preparing a direct attack against AU mission in Somalia forces, Pentagon spokesman Major James Brindle told Foreign Policy. And over the last week alone, American forces conducted a series of strikes against al-Shabaab. And what they've clearly done is absolutely hammered them ahead of President Obama's visit. I think that's what the evidence is informing us of. And I think we've got to watch that carefully, but whether that sort of more aggressive forward stance gains more traction. The Enough Project issued a report mapping out the kleptocracy behind South Sudan conflict in an investigative report. The link is on Rich Wrap-Ups. It's worth reading. It's very interesting. Country's elites have built a kleptocratic regime that controls all sectors of the economy. Government of South Sudan is likely earning as little as $9 to $12 a barrel, the lowest price in the world for crude oil. As of May 2015, Juba had reportedly secured a $500 million loan from Qatar National Bank, as per statements by the presidential spokesman, following a $250 million credit line reportedly extended in 2014 at a significant interest rate of less than 6%. Currency speculation, and I know this is a fact, is one of the most lucrative illicit schemes available to well-connected individuals. Officially, the exchange rate has not changed since independence. And in 2015, it still officially stands at 3.16 South Sudanese pounds to the dollar. The black market rate has worsened dramatically, especially in recent months. During a visit to Juba in November 2014, the black market rate was approaching 5. March 2015, it was reported to be 9. June 2015, it hovered between 12 and 15. Those who are able to take advantage of this opportunity for arbitrage can profit tremendously. Currently, taking $1 of this opportunity for arbitrage, $1 and exchanging at the black market for 15, then exchanging it back into dollars at 3.16, one would receive $5 or a 400% profit. And then Linda Nabusai of the Ugandan, I think, presidential service tweeted Kaguta Museveni in a multilateral meeting with Dlamini Zuma and Uhuru Kenyatta. That must have been about South Sudan, where I think President Museveni has a degree of control. Burundi presidential vote not credible, UN observers said. Relatively peaceful, but had not been an inclusive and free, credible vote. Election day was relatively peaceful and conducted adequately. The overall environment was not conducive for an inclusive, free, and credible electoral process. The majority of people, some of whom, and people whose opinion I count on, telling me he's not going to last his full term. South African all share is up 3.076% year to date. But obviously looking at that gold price with some nervousness. The dollar rand is at 12.5940. My target, which was a real outlier one, doesn't look too far away now, does it? 14. Airbnb is hoping to spread its unique brand of hospitality throughout Africa. The CEO, of course, escorted President Obama on his visit here. San Francisco company, which allows people to rent rooms in their private homes to travelers over the internet, held an event July 27 in Johannesburg, where Airbnb CEO Brian Chesky walked local reporters through the company's ambitions in Africa. Recently hired a general manager for Middle East and Africa. In the coming weeks, Airbnb says it will also roll out its host guarantee in Africa, which reimburses hosts for up to $1 million if a guest damages their homes. Many Africans have already taken to Airbnb despite the company's lack of a physical presence here. The Egyptian pound 782.89, the Egyptian stock market down 11.63% so far this year. Al Jazeera News tweeted, girl aged 10 used in bombing in Nigeria's Damaturu. It's just appalling. Nigeria all shares down 11.1% and at 4-month lows. Ghana Stock Exchange Composite Index is up a marginal 0.08% year to date. With milk and roses, Africa woos private equity funds. Private equity deals in Africa totaled $8.1 billion last year, second highest on record after the $8.3 billion posted in 2007. I like this quote. There is risk everywhere. There is risk on Wall Street, said Muvirimi Kupara, head of Sphere Capital, a Zimbabwean fund with interests in dairy processing. He who dares wins. This tweet from Das Matre, July 22nd, by 2050, sub-Saharan Africa population will account for more than 20% of the global population. Moving to Kenya, White House tweeted, Kenya is on the move. Africa is on the move. POTUS. I wrote that piece over the weekend, the POTUS-Obama effect on our economy's progress. US Embassy Vienna tweeted this photograph of POTUS and the tagline, entrepreneurship is the spark of prosperity, and I can't agree more. And then Al Jazeera News tweeted this photograph of President Obama departing Kenya for Ethiopia. I, of course, was impressed with the American hardware, the Ospreys that landed outside my office not once but twice, and the Apaches that I saw as Andrew Simmons interviewed me. The White House Office of the Press Secretary has also released a statement showing what backing the US is giving under President Obama's program. Kenya shilling has popped over 102. That's because of a headline in the Business Daily where the central banker says shilling nets fall now beyond his control. And I think he's on point. He's talking about external pressures, a rampant dollar putting pressure on the shilling. Nairobi all share fell 0.1% yesterday to close, and it's now down 6.509% year to date and at an 11.5-month low. NSE 20 fell 0.73% yesterday, down 12.62% year to date at a 29-month low. Draz from Reuters interviewed me about the stock exchange yesterday, and I said, you've had net selling. This is over the last few months. Foreigners weary of currency weakness put pressure on the Kenyan market. However, I said yesterday, Safaricom and EABL turned higher, and I said normally that's a signal that the broader market will turn around. It tends to follow those big cap stocks. As I said, we fell to fresh lows, 2015 lows yesterday. But however, I wrote this yesterday, so those hoping for an Obama bounce will have to wait, but only as far as tomorrow. So let's see, I think the market will turn higher. That's today. The agricultural sector has been a big standout of the stock market. Kachoria tea rallied 5.26%, it's up 45.98% year to date. Sasini tea was up 2.86%. Kakuzi tea has doubled in price this year, and they've served up some juicy returns in 2015 because of a monster tea rally in Mombasa. And about Safaricom, given the number of shout-outs M-Pesa and Safaricom received at the GES summit during the visit of President Obama, it was to be expected that Safaricom would turn higher. It did yesterday, rallied just under 1%. WPP Scan Group reported first half earnings at the end of last week, and I didn't touch on this. First half billings declined 9.825%, in fact. First half revenue increased 2.34%. First half profit before tax accelerated 12.43%. Earnings per share up 2.38%. In their commentary, they said revenue increased by 2.3% on a constant currency basis. The business delivered revenue growth of 6.5%. But due to continuing pressures on the currencies in the countries in which we operate, our overall growth rate was reduced to 2.3%. The company also announced geographical extension into Zambia, Uganda, Nigeria, but they reported a 73.45% surge in interest income, which a lot of people have pointed out, asking, are they a treasury operation or an advertising company? The share has fallen 20.99% through 2015. KQ will report this Thursday. Obviously, we know these are going to be very difficult results. Firmed to 0.72%, it closes 695. KCB's Joshua was named by the FD in its top 25 Africans to watch, and it edged 50 cents lower. Equity Group is now down 17% year to date. I think now that's really going to be the limit. Co-op Bank has been actually a very strong stock, and in part I think it's because there are not that many foreigners on the shareholder register, so when you saw generic selling, it doesn't hit Co-op Bank as it might hit the other banks. Britam, which had slumped 51.76% year to date through yesterday morning, rebounded 4.181%. I think Benson would like to see it gain a bit more upside traction. BAT reported very respectable first half earnings, first half profit before tax rallying 8.27%. Interestingly, they because they're exporting, the currency woes played in their favor. Gross revenue increased driven by improved sales mix to the domestic market and the benefit of foreign exchange movements arising from export sales. EABL, the share price, BAT fell 8.36%, but I think that's a head fake. And finally, EABL is reporting results this Friday, rallied 2.413% very strongly and was trading at 300 at the closing bell. Arthur River up 0.71% to close at 71. And they too will be reporting earnings on Thursday. Looking forward to that. So I'm interviewing a bunch of people. Pradeep, Charles Ireland. So Pradeep is the cement sector. Charles Ireland, drinks, EABL, lots going on. Tabitha Karanja making a lot of accusations. I'm going to ask him about that. And Bhuvi of Kenya Airways. So we should get a real fix on what's going on over the next few sessions, I hope. Once again, thank you for stopping by. I am grateful.